You can buy them on the streets like illegal drugs and stolen cars. But you can't get one legally unless you like, you know, 2 years of red tape and some slack-jawed bureaucrats. If you've got the money and a Sharpie lawyer, you can get one in a flash. But no one is standing in line to adopt the thousands of homeless babies languishing in institutions and foster homes, begging for the loving parents they don't have. Adoption, homeless kids, homosexual adoption. On the next, come on, join me. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Let's turn this camera on. Good, you got it on. Let's get going here now. I want to introduce you to Marsha Riben. Is it Riben or Riben?
Riben.
Riben. Okay, Marsha, you're with an organization shedding light on the dark side of adoption. Actually, that's your book that you wrote. I'm going to give you a little background on Marsha. She's a birth mother. She surrendered her daughter at birth. Co-founder of Origins, a national group for mothers who have lost their children. You challenge 3 myths, I believe, in your book, that home for kids, challenge that. There's a necessity for a home for kids. You challenge a kid for homeless families, that homeless families have to have a kid. And you challenge the fact that there are lots of healthy adoptive homes. Am I correct?
Well, yeah.
All right. Let me ask you then.
Yeah.
We've all heard of the good, the bad, and the ugly that goes with adoption. Let's try to narrow our focus tonight, all right? What is the function of adoption? Is it to, well, tell me the function
Okay,
first.
I think that's what I said. You sort of got the point. I think that adoption used to be to find homes for homeless children. It has gotten now to be to find children for childless couples. I think the switch, the slant in adoption has changed, and it's not a good change.
Well, is there any reason why you shouldn't find kids for homeless children? I mean, kids for homeless parents?
Couples.
If those parents really want to have a child?
Well, first of all, just being childless is no criteria, okay? Good parents could be infertile or not infertile. Just being infertile
good parents could already have 2 or 3 children.
That's what I just said, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Infertility in and of itself doesn't necessitate that, and we tend to...
No, but is it a crime to be infertile and to want to give your home to a child? I mean, this is someone...
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. Yeah. If you're infertile and you want to give your home for a child, as you said in the opening, there are some 36,000 children in this country that are free and available and waiting for adoptions. They're being warehoused in foster homes, in institutions, and in hospitals. But nobody wants those children because they're the wrong race, they're the wrong age.
Wait a second. Don't they want the children because a lot of times the fact that they have to go through so much red tape with the bureaucracies set up? No, that's wrong,
not to get the children that are already free and available.
Crap, all right, because I've been trying to adopt for 4 years. 4 years. And I've gone to all the agencies. I don't care how old the child is. I'll take the child.
Have you gone to agencies that deal specifically with hard-to-place children?
Everywhere. And you know what they tell me? I'm too old. Do I look too old for you?
Hard-to-place child? I find that hard to believe more. I can't believe that.
You can find it hard to believe all the hell you want. I've tried.
There are books. Right. There's a blue book in New York that's this thick. It's thicker than the New York telephone directory. That's full of children that are waiting for homes. And there's no age restriction. They place those children in single-parent homes. They place those children...
Let me ask you a question then. You just moved into a different area.
Mm-hmm.
If there is no restriction on those children who are very hard to have adopted, why is there a restriction of age on the part of the parent of children who aren't that hard to adopt?
Healthy white newborns are scarce. They're scarce, and that's what everybody wants. That's what there's a long waiting list for. There's not a long waiting list for black children, for interracial children, for handicapped children, and for older children. When I
offered to take handicapped children.
You did?
Too. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to know what agency turned you down, Because
I'll let you know all of them after the show.
Okay.
All right?
And I'll give you a list of agencies that you could probably call tomorrow and get a
We didn't care if they
child.
were handicapped children or anything else.
Well, I can give you a list of agencies after the show that you can call up and get a child tomorrow.
Good.
Because there are children waiting for homes.
Good, good. I got some more questions I want to ask you. How about the fact that, where's Artie? Is Artie here? Artie, let me ask you a question. You started a very successful organization called the Golden Cradle, with which I'm very familiar, all right? And you help birth mothers. Are you in this to keep kids away from the abortionist knife, or are you in it just to make a buck for yourself?
Well, first of all, I don't make a buck. I have worked for 9 years absolutely free. I've never taken money. I go on speaking tours, and basically I spend a lot of time involved in adoption. My vocation is I'm a businessman who works in the auto supply business in the Philadelphia area, and came into adoption kind of backdoor in the fact that my wife and I had trouble conceiving. Later we adopted. After 5.5 years we adopted, and then...
Took you 5.5 years of baloney to go through, didn't it?
A lot more.
Yeah.
Because you wanted a white, healthy infant. Is that true?
Why do you have everyone's answers?
It took
You
him
didn't
a
have
long
your own.
time.
You didn't. You obviously didn't have your own answer when you had your
Why
own
doesn't
baby.
he answer? Did you
Let
adopt
me
a
hear it.
handicap?
It's his turn, mouth.
Okay, fine.
Basically, what Marsha is alluding to earlier in the conversation, and the basic problem is the fact that there are close to 3 million couples in this country looking to adopt.
Is that wrong?
No, let me explain that more. What that means is, on one hand, you have close to 3 million couples in the United States. And since 1979, there have only been approximately 50,000 healthy white infants available for adoption. So obviously, the couples looking for the white healthy infant that Marsha alluded to. There are, like Marsha said, lots of kids. But unfortunately, lots of couples are not looking for those kids. And that's a major problem.
How about you when you were looking for your adoption? As Marsha says, were you looking for a healthy white child?
We felt that we could accept a child with possible correctable handicaps. We weren't sure if we could handle a Down syndrome child. It's not for everybody. Not everybody can handle that kind of situation.
And doesn't make the person a bad person because they can't handle it.
Absolutely not. But I can understand Marsha's feelings about people looking for white healthy infants.
Is there something wrong, Marsha, with people looking for white healthy infants?
Only in terms of the fact that they don't exist in the quantity that people want them. And they're not willing to take, quote, second best. What they try and do instead...
What is second best?
Second best to them would be, as Artie just said, a Down syndrome child. He considered that, in his personal opinion, I'm not making a value judgment, he considered that child second best for his particular choice. People consider interracial children second best in their particular preference.
As I told you, my wife and I have looked in all areas and all corners. I even contacted Artie's group about 3 years ago, Artie. All right, I didn't have any success. We didn't care if it was an interracial child. We didn't care if the child was permanently handicapped. I'm not talking Down syndrome, all right, because it would have been my wife's first child. So I wasn't talking about Down syndrome. But no, and it didn't have to be a healthy white child, and we still had a difficult time. And I'm telling you, the problem, Artie, if I came to you today, I'm 55 years old, pal, and I'm in damn good shape, all right? Trust me. Trust me. My grandfather lived to 101, my grandmother 97, my father 86, my uncle's still alive, he's 93. What in screw makes you think I'm going to flake off right away? Why wouldn't I be a perfect parent?
Probably you would be. The unfortunate thing is that most agencies in the United States are very concerned about the child growing up and being closer in age to the parent. In the fact that a 55-year-old...
Good, then I'll adopt an 18-year-old Swedish girl.
Please get to
Next, we're going to meet a man who was sold on the black market. Stand by. Right away. Joining us at home base is Artie Elgart. Now, in case I didn't tell you about Artie, Golden Cradle is a non-profit adoption agency that aggressively searches, all right, for pregnant girls who want to give their children up for adoption. Do you have anything that you have freeze-framed that you can show me and our viewers at home, the type of advertising that Artie does? This is the type of advertising you'll see in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and areas around where Artie is looking for these women. And thank God there's someone like him doing it, all right? If nothing else, it saves a potentially great brain for our American economy instead of having it aborted. Standing here at our loudmouth joining us is Joe Saul, founder of Adoption Circle. Joe, why don't you tell us your story, all right? You were adopted, weren't you?
I was adopted in 1939. I was sold in the black market for $5,000. Sold.
You were sold in the black market?
I was sold, yes, by a social worker.
By a social worker?
By a social worker. She
How
sold
much
babies.
She get for you?
$5,000.
What a bum deal.
Could have been more.
Okay. She sold you for $5,000. Then what?
Right. She sold babies for 20 years in New York.
How many babies did she sell?
Hundreds. She was arrested and tried a year-long trial in 1949. And
she was time in jail?
No, a $1,000 fine.
$1,000 fine. Well, now let's think about this. Would the babies have been languishing in some... Did you have good parents who brought you up?
Absolutely.
Did you love them?
Absolutely. Still do.
They help you?
They help me.
Help you a lot. So let's assume that hundreds of babies were helped that otherwise would have been in lying in hospital in those days or some of these other areas and never been adopted.
Someone could also have helped my birth mother keep me.
Yes?
Given her the choice, given her support.
Do you know that your birth mother wasn't given the choice?
From what I know of Bessie Bernard, she wasn't given any choice. My birth mother didn't know I was sold either.
She didn't know you were sold?
No, absolutely not.
Did she know you were going to be adopted?
Yes.
She did?
Yes.
So what's the difference between sold and adopted? I mean, nowadays, you got a lawyer who goes in and gets something for you, and you pay the lawyer a $10,000 fee to get the baby for you, and you adopt the baby, but you didn't have to pay the mother anything. I mean, you've still paid $10,000. It's a fee.
I think that selling babies is slavery somehow.
Okay. All right.
And
were you sold into slavery?
No, I wasn't sold into slavery. However, my history is stolen, sealed. My records were falsified. My birth date was falsified.
Ah, now we get into something else. The records being sealed, falsification of the birth papers, the inability of Joe to ever know if his family had diabetes, how many of your relatives died from cancer, what the heart attack rates were in your family. None of these statistics are available to you.
Aside from medical information, which is not available, it would be nice to know if I was Italian or French or Polish. Wouldn't matter, but it would be nice to know.
You were Polish.
I'll accept it. I accept it.
And you should be damn proud of it, my friend, all right? Now, let me go to Jerrold. Joining us at our other loudmouth is Jerrold Kaminsky, an attorney for independent adoption. Jerrold, Joe has just given us, to him, a horror story, all right? But honestly, his mother gave him up because she didn't want or couldn't raise him. Shouldn't she have the right to remain anonymous and protect her privacy?
Of course she should have that right, but I'd like to go back to something that you mentioned in an earlier segment as far as your efforts to adopt. There are healthy white infants available for adoption, more than most people think. And if you search them out,
you're not going to get that kind of follow-up from our guest, Marsha.
Then she may not know the right technique, which is absolutely legal. She may not be diligent enough in her search. She may not be as caring or as persistent as many of the people are, but there are absolutely...
Share with us some of the ways, all right?
Many of the people are
she'd like to know.
Many people are successful through word of mouth, through talking about their needs, about their desires to have a family, with other professionals, with other persons who may come in contact with pregnant women. Many people are successful through the newspaper ads. And I know there are people who are going to say the newspaper ads are buying babies, but they're not. It's just advertising your free speech right to talk about your desire to have a family.
Let's get
and
back.
the birth mothers respond, and they respond for good reasons.
All right, have you advertised for babies in the newspaper?
No, no. The clients...
Any of your clients?
In New Jersey, the clients do,
Have they been
yes.
successful?
Absolutely.
How many clients have advertised and how many have been successful?
I have clients who are successful about once every 2 weeks in my practice. In other words...
From advertising in the paper?
That's right.
And what age do they get the baby? A new baby?
They usually get newborns. Just about all the time it's newborns.
If they're black, they get a black child. If they're white, they get a white child. If they're Hispanic, if they're Oriental?
It's certainly up to them, and that's right.
How's that ring with you, Marsha?
I wanted to comment on something you said before to Joe. You said, you know, what was the difference if he were sold or adopted legally? I think you ought to think about Michelle Launders. Okay, you said Joe's mother probably wanted to give him up for adoption. Michelle Launders had a baby who she loved and couldn't take care of. So did Nicole Smeagol. So did thousands of other women. And they intended to make a loving plan for their child by giving that child up for adoption. They did not want their child sold to be abused, beaten, and murdered. This is what
How
can
often
happen,
does that happen?
through newspaper ads. There are no protections for these people, for these children. What screening do you do?
Those birth mothers wanted to make sure that that child was placed properly. They would have done something about it and checked into it and made sure that the adoption went the way they thought it did. But they came up only after they read it in the newspaper.
Who would have checked into
We
what?
assume we're talking about the Steinberg
Who
child,
checks
right?
if two people answer a newspaper ad? The publisher of the paper? Who's counseling these people and who's screening these people?
The people who respond to the newspaper ads are well aware of what they're doing. They've had a situation which has been going on for a number of months. Most of the people who respond to the newspaper ads are well into their second half of the pregnancy. They are aware of their situation. They know what they want. They want what's best for their child.
Who has made someone aware who answers an ad in the paper?
They'd be in the abortion clinic.
Well, that I object to also. Several times you have made the comment that Joe and other adoptees, if they didn't find these loving homes, they'd be aborted. And I strongly object to that.
No, not Joe. It wasn't legal in his day. You strongly object to me saying it?
Yes.
That's tough.
Well,
at least I'll give you credit. At least you're entitled to credit.
It may have been illegal in Joe's day, but let me tell you something.
The hangers and all the bad stuff.
I could have had an abortion.
Baloney. Don't feed me that pro-choice crap. That's all it is. You want the right to control your own body, right? Because you're a woman, so I control my own body. Remember, ladies,
no, that's not what I'm saying.
50% of those bodies come out with testicles. Have you got those too?
Mort, that's not what I'm saying. I am not necessarily pro-choice or pro-abortion. What I am saying is that women who surrender their children for adoption are not choosing adoption over abortion.
In some cases, they are.
In many cases, though, the choice is between adoption or keeping the child. An abortion is, in many cases, the woman doesn't even know she's pregnant until it's way too far for an abortion. Where did you get your history way too far for an abortion? Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade, January 22nd, 1973. A woman in the first trimester may have an abortion by her own choice. In the second trimester, she needs the concurrence of a doctor. And in the third trimester, 7th, 8th, and 9th month, she needs 2 doctors. Well,
so tell me how tough it is to get an abortion.
That doesn't make it safe.
Huh?
That doesn't make it safe.
It sure as hell doesn't make it safe for the unborn child.
Doesn't make it safe for either of them.
I think what we're getting away from is what Jerry and Marsha first started at, and that was Marsha asked the question about screening. And I think that's where the difference is when you're talking about a licensed agency compared to private adoption.
All right, let's talk about screening. How do you handle it?
We have the couples first start out with a profile test, a personality test. After they pass that screening, they go through what's called a home study, which is a complete evaluation of the couple's growing up period, how they get along with their parents and other siblings, and we go into a whole history. Couples have to write a complete autobiography. Our couples are screened by police checks and also FBI checks. We do a lot of work.
You check to see if there's been child abuse involved?
Exactly right.
Or any of those things?
Exactly.
If there's been any... let me ask you a question. Would you adopt a baby to a homosexual?
We've never had that situation. I'm not sure I can give you a direct answer right now.
All right, I want to finish this in the next segment, all right? How and who decides who gets the baby? Next, stand by. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to come back up here on home. Someone's having an attack in the audience or a baby. Let me go back to Artie before we go to our loudmouths and introduce a new guest that we have at the loudmouth. You get more than 3,000 requests from couples every single year, all right, for babies. You place only 100 babies. What is your criteria for the lucky few?
It's basically a long list, but it's very general. Basically, our couples have to be married for at least 3 years, be at least 25 years of age, be of good sound health, emotional stability.
How old?
Most agencies stop at age 35. We're a little bit flexible. We go into the early 40s.
Tell you what I think I'm going to do after this show. I am going to get a hold of my attorney, and I am going to bring an age discrimination case, all right? There is no such thing as age discrimination in this country, is there? That's bullshit. Marsha, do you claim...
Morton, that Artie said to you before that age, there is an age category for his agency. I personally know that he placed a child with somebody who was over 60 years of age. Now, whether this was before you were a recognized agency or not, I don't know.
Artie?
But we do definitely know that you have placed a baby in a home where the father was over 60.
How about it, Artie, baby?
In order to... I did, for the first 3.5 years, actually 3 years with Golden Cradle, I did private adoption. And we later became a licensed agency. And at that time, there was less flexibility with rules and regulations as there were earlier on.
Well, I have quite a few things I'd like to discuss.
Incidentally, folks, let me introduce you
If I
to our
may.
guest who's talking, Carol Gustavosn. She's Adoptive Parents for Open Records.
Founder.
Yeah.
I would like to address several things with you, Artie, because I have a very deep concern about some of the things that you're doing. Basically, to start out with, the billboards and so forth, and the lack of dignity that you show to people who come into this world and are placed for adoption. We've had for the past couple of years dignity in dying. Where is your dignity with birth for the children?
Let me ask you a question.
That's something
let me ask you a question. Maybe unbeknownst to you, but through the United States, a baby is found at least once a day. About 350 to 400 babies are found a year in trash cans, wrapped up in towels and sheets. On doorsteps. Just a few weeks ago in Wildwood, New Jersey, a baby was found abandoned under the boardwalk. We advertise to offer assistance to pregnant women to prevent things like this from happening. We don't twist arms as far as adoption is concerned. Adoption is the option for them with us. However, we offer, let me finish my, I didn't interrupt you, ma'am.
Advertise for
Carol,
adoption.
I did not interrupt you.
It says nothing about
I did not interrupt you. I'd like to continue.
Let him answer first, Carol.
You asked me a question, I'd like to answer it. Okay? Thank you. The advertising is done to prevent things like this from happening. If the advertising offends you, I'm sorry, I can't help it. The advertising would not offend 3 million couples in this country who are looking to adopt, or their parents who are very concerned about the...
I have sensitivities. I just watched the tape of a program that you were on explaining why you use these billboards, and you made the statement that anybody who wasn't seeking a baby would not be offended by these. I am an adoptive parent. I don't speak for all adoptive parents, but certainly
You got a good
I don't like what you're doing.
Wait a second. Carol has a good point, but let me ask you, Carol, do you find as much distaste for the billboards that advertise for abortion?
I don't like anything that is going to be abusing a situation. Abortion and people that are looking at that choice in life have to know that there are places out there that where abortions are available.
Don't people who want to adopt, don't people who want to adopt or have their child adopted have to know that there are places out there too?
I am speaking to the adoptees who have not been recognized as human beings, who grow up from babyhood to adulthood, who have feelings. And so we
Now,
take...
explain the feelings.
All right.
We've already spoken to Joe Saul here. Joe Saul had feelings. He'd like to know a little bit more about his background. He also admits that his feelings were not injured by his adoptive parents, that they gave him love, guidance, direction, discipline, and he came out to be a fine man.
My children love me, too, and they love our family, and they love our relations. The part that I am speaking to is that children that are brought into this world deserve a healthy amount of respect. And when they grow up, we are not, as adoptive parents, the answers to everything in their lives.
We first have to get them into
may
this world,
I
okay?
finish
So we don't
speaking,
find
Artie?
them. No, I'd like to interrupt you
You are
once, too.
interrupting me. I think, well, I'm not going to let you interrupt me.
We're talking about getting them into this world. You can't get them into this world when they're found under the boardwalk wrapped in a sheet.
You were talking about a minority.
Well,
we're talking about
earlier
one a
was
day.
talking about the Steinberg case.
Talking about
That's
one a
not a
day that we
majority.
can't.
He's
A
talking
tragedy.
about 400.
Than you're aware of.
He's talking about 400 a year. Are you?
I don't know the numbers. There's a lot more abuse and adoption than you're
he
aware
can
of.
prove his, Marsha. All you're doing is lip syncing.
That they live happily ever
up until
after,
1982,
and that is not the case,
most of the
Artie.
phone books in this
We
country
deal
did not even
continually
have adoption
with
agencies
the children
listed under
growing up
adoption.
to be adults.
Okay?
All right, well, this is a lot of garbage, all right? Let's find out right now about if a child is adopted, should the records be available to that child when he hits 18 or to the parents who adopted that child? Let me go to Jerrold. What do you think, Jerrold?
Only if all the parties involved, the adoptive family, the birth parents, and the child. I think each of the parties to the adoption situation has a constitutional right to privacy, to be left alone.
When
not
someone's
to be intruded
privacy,
into.
Jerrold, I don't want you to start sounding like Judge Bork to me now. When someone's privacy is not only impaired, but his health is impaired or her health is impaired because someone has information that would help them, his privacy, her privacy, the mother's privacy who gave up that child, I think is overridden by the needs of the child.
I would also like to ask this gentleman, if I may.
I'd like to agree with you for once that, yeah, that's true. And in all the statutes that I'm aware of, if there's a health emergency, the court is going to seek out or
Not
help
true.
the
It
birth
doesn't
parents to
always
seek
happen.
out a
Not
situation.
true.
I, as an
Not true.
adoptive
We know
parent,
people
don't
who
want to
died
have
needing
to treat
kidneys,
my
and the records weren't open for
as
them.
children
No,
when
not
they're
true.
35 years old, giving approval for them to
That's
have
right.
this information.
Let me tell you.
No
I got-
other parent
let me
has to
tell
do
you,
that.
Baby
I might
Emma's
get in a little jam for this. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I might get in a little jam for this. I've got an older brother who was adopted because my parents supposedly couldn't have children until I came along, all right? He was adopted. To this day, he doesn't know who his real mother and his biological mother and father are. He is extremely disturbed by not having that information. If there is anyone in the country who knows of a male child that they put out for adoption who was born on August the 3rd of 1929, I'd like to know.
Where was he born?
I'd like to know. And he was born in New York State.
In New York State?
We have searched for and found the original families for all of our children. It has not been a devastation. They are all going on as far healthier, emotionally healthier people. Their birth parents are feeling these same feelings of thankfulness in knowing that their children are growing well and that they have a place in life and that they have a much deeper understanding of why they were placed for
All right,
adoption.
next we're going to meet a man who wants to help children that nobody else wants. Stand by.